and that light came on, boom, I was off the button, and I fully expected him to be a car out.
Car started shaking halfway through the pass. His car ran perfect. My car didn't.
Street Outlaws was built on one promise. If it happened, the cameras rolled. That made the victories unforgettable, but it also meant that some of the franchise's darkest moments unfolded in full view of its fans. Fatal crashes, devastating illnesses, arrests, and courtroom battles slowly changed the lives of the very people who made the show famous. Which Street Outlaws stars faced the toughest turns after the cameras stopped rolling? And which stories were even more shocking than anything the series ever aired? Join us as we uncover the real stories behind Street Outlaws cast members who are dead or in jail. Tyler Flip. Pretty. A death that was never explained. Tyler Flip Pretty was one of the original faces of Street Outlaws, a founding member of the 405 crew known for his trash talk and his 1980 Chevy El Camino, nicknamed Elko. He died in 2013, just 31 years old, before the show's first season had even premiered, meaning he never actually got to see himself on television. He was the father of 4 sons. What actually happened has never been officially confirmed. While no cause of death was ever made public, the rumors that have circulated for years suggested that it may have been self-harm rather than the car accident that was first speculated at the time, though neither version has ever been confirmed by his family or by the show. That lack of an official record left a vacuum, and years of online speculation rushed in to fill it. The honest answer is that the full story was never made public, and repeating unverified rumors doesn't change that. His car didn't disappear along with him, though. A close childhood friend named Chris Day, known on the show as Kamikaze, inherited the El Camino after Pretty's death. Chris had grown up alongside Justin Shearer, better known as Big Chief, and had been a motocross rider before ever getting behind the wheel of a car, a path partly influenced by his own father, who raced boats and cars. Once he got his driver's license as a teenager, Chris raced a Chevy before eventually taking over Flip's El Camino, spending years and his own savings rebuilding it into a twin turbocharged tribute car and keeping his friend's memory visibly present on the same streets he used to race. That rebuilt Elko was destroyed in a crash during a race that aired in late 2024. And Chris has said he's rebuilding it again from scratch, a second time carrying his friend's name forward more than a decade after his death. While Tyler's cause of death was never confirmed, the next member's tragic demise was witnessed by the whole world. Ryan Fellows, the crash that led to a lawsuit. Ryan Fellows didn't come from the original 405 crew, but by 2022, he was a fixture of the wider Street Outlaws universe, competing on Street Outlaws, Fastest in America, and appearing as a guest racer in a Season 5 episode of Street Outlaws Memphis. On August 7th of that year, he was racing another driver in Las Vegas, the 8th of 9 scheduled races that night, when he lost control of his gold Nissan 240Z near the finish line. The car rolled and caught fire. Witnesses on scene were unable to get him out in time, and he died at 41. The filming was legally permitted. The Nevada Department of Transportation confirmed it had issued Street Outlaws a permit to close Las Vegas Boulevard north of Highway 93 for the shoot, and the production had been filming on and off overnight in that area for several weeks. Ryan Fellows was survived by his wife Liz and 2 children, 18-year-old Josiah, and 10-year-old Olivia. Discovery and the show's official account confirmed his death the next morning. A GoFundMe that was set up for his family described him as an avid car enthusiast and road warrior, admired for his tenacity and relentless drive, and it went on to raise more than $18,000 toward its goal. The story didn't end with the funeral. In February 2023, Fellows' family filed a wrongful death lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court against Warner Brothers Discovery and Lionsgate Entertainment, the companies behind the production. The suit alleged gross negligence, claiming the drag races that led to Ryan's death were filmed on a dusty, weather-beaten, rough asphalt roadway in the Las Vegas desert that didn't meet industry safety standards for drag racing. The family's attorneys argued the production had already overseen numerous crashes at that same location and had opportunities to move filming elsewhere, but didn't. Discovery responded by extending its sympathies to Fellows' loved ones again, without directly addressing the lawsuit's claims. Unfortunately, Ryan was not the last racer to face that cruel and tragic fate on the racetrack. Nathan "Cali Nate" Shaldak. Another track, another loss. Nathan Shaldak, known to fans as Cali Nate, died in April 2024 in a crash during a racing event in Eagle Pass, Texas. He was rushed to the hospital, but didn't survive his injuries. Alongside Flip and Ryan Fellows, his death rounds out 3 separate years where a sport built entirely around split-second decisions at extreme speed didn't offer a second chance when something went wrong. Moving on, the next member on the list encountered something terrible that had nothing to do with racetracks, and sadly, didn't survive it. Wayne Smozanex lost to a long fight with COVID. Wayne had built a reputation in racing circles well beyond just street outlaws. He was the creator of the original Tropical Thunder monster truck and was widely featured in racing media for his daredevil driving style, drawing fans from across the country to watch him compete. Unfortunately, he died in February 2022 at Jupiter Medical Center in Jupiter, Florida, after what his family described as a very long, hard-fought battle with COVID-19. Another fan favorite fought her battle in full view of the racing community, and millions watched her journey unfold, one update at a time. So what really happened to Lizzie Musiey? Lizzie Musiey, the illness everyone watched coming. Lizzie Musiey's death carries a different kind of weight because her illness was never a mystery. She grew up around racing as the daughter of Pat Musiey, an 8-time PDRA Pro Street World Champion and the founder of Pat Musiey Racing Engines. She was driving her own junior dragster by age 8, made her Pro Nitrous debut in 2014, and that July became the first woman to break 200 miles per hour in 8th Mile Door Slammer racing, also becoming the first woman to win a Professional Drag Racers Association national event at the U.S. Drags at Virginia Motorsports Park. She took home PDRA Rookie of the Year that same season. She joined Street Outlaws, No Prep Kings in 2018, alongside her father, and in the show's second season, became the first woman to win an NPK event, later becoming the first driver to win 3 NPK events in a row. She also appeared in other franchise spin-offs, including Locals Only, Gone Girl, and Fastest in America, and served for a time as president of the family business, Musiey Enterprises, in Mooresville, North Carolina. In April 2023, Lizzie announced on YouTube, sitting beside her then-fiancé and fellow racer Kai Kelly, that she'd been diagnosed with stage 4 triple-negative breast cancer that had already spread to her lymph nodes and liver. She'd first noticed a lump around December 2022, and it grew quickly over the following months before doctors confirmed the diagnosis. She began treatment at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center and later traveled to a clinic in Germany to explore additional options. She and Kelly separated later that year. Lizzie kept racing through parts of her treatment, competing in the 2023 NPK season with her doctor's approval, and made her final competitive appearance at Empire Dragway on May 24, 2024. She later began a relationship with NASCAR driver Jeffrey Earnhardt, grandson of Dale Earnhardt Sr. She died at her home in Statesville, North Carolina, on June 27, 2024, at age 33. Her passing devastated the racing world, but her family never had to wonder how deeply she was loved. Fans had stood beside her throughout every stage of her fight. The next tragedy was very different. It happened quietly, behind closed doors, and left many people asking the same question. How had someone so familiar been struggling without anyone realizing it? Christopher Kentucky Ellis, the mechanic. Nobody saw struggling. Christopher Ellis, known on the show as Kentucky, was one of the most respected mechanics working out of Justin Shearer and Sean Ellington's shop, Midwest Street Cars Automotive, present since the very first season. In September 2020, he was found dead in his home at 39 years old, discovered days after he'd actually died. An incident report described him as found beside a liquor bottle and a syringe containing a substance consistent with heroin. It's a hard story to sit with precisely because it doesn't fit the show's usual danger: the burnout, the blown engine, the missed shift at 150 miles an hour. Christopher's death pointed to a private struggle that never showed up on camera at all, one that ended alone, days before anyone even realized something was wrong. Both Discovery and his Street Outlaws castmates sent condolences to his family when the news broke. His story reminded everyone that not every battle happened at the starting line. But the next headline to shake the Street Outlaws family came from a completely different direction. Instead of a private struggle, it began with one unexpected phone call that ended with flashing lights, handcuffs, and one of the show's longest-running racers behind bars. Chuck Seitzinger, the phone call that landed him in jail. Chuck Seitzinger has raced on Street Outlaws since Season 1. He spent the majority of his life racing, driving competitively since his senior year of high school, and was named Rookie of the Year by the Nopi Drag Racing Association in 2004, the same year he won the Nitrous Express P/4 Xbox Cup Championship in the four-cylinder division. Off-camera, he runs a repair shop called Advanced Motorsports and sells racing merchandise, including die-cast models of his Fox Body Mustang, nicknamed Death Trap, through his own online store. In 2022, fans noticed him missing from part of the No Prep Kings season and eventually learned why. He'd been arrested and spent 60 days in the Oklahoma County Jail. By his own account, the arrest traced back to July 2020, when he was hospitalized with a severe case of COVID-19 while his children were staying with him for the summer. Once he landed in the ICU, the kids were sent back to their mother's house, where Chuck says problems developed that led to a phone call he made trying to intervene from his hospital bed. That call resulted in 2 misdemeanor charges, making a threat of violence and placing an obscene or harassing phone call. He pleaded no contest and was sentenced to 18 months, with all but 60 days suspended, followed by a year of supervised probation and a mandatory anger management class. Chuck was open about the whole ordeal once he got out, posting a YouTube video titled "Chuck's Out of Jail Judges and Grudges," explaining his side directly rather than letting rumors fill the gap. He returned to racing almost immediately, arriving at a No Prep Kings event at Virginia Motorsports Park just hours after his release. Because he'd missed the qualifying invitational, he had to race his way into the field instead of getting an automatic spot, and ultimately missed making the 32-car cutoff that weekend. And just when that chapter seemed finished, another legal fight began.
That's the biggest no prep anybody's ever had. And I won it by beating Kai in the semifinals.
J.J. Da Boss Day, a past sentence and a new legal fight. J.J. Da Boss Day, real name Jonathan Day, built part of his own reputation around leaving trouble behind him. Before ever appearing on Street Outlaws, Memphis, he served an 8-year federal prison sentence, a past he's spoken about publicly as part of turning his life around into what became one of Memphis's most formidable racing operations. That chapter closed well before cameras ever found him. A newer legal fight hasn't closed the same way. A couple named Chad Larkin and his wife, who appeared on the show, later sued JJ, the production company, and Discovery Channel, seeking as much as $5 million in compensatory damages and another $5 million in punitive damages. Their lawsuit claimed producers deliberately encouraged tense, confrontational situations on set that escalated into real violence, and that footage was later edited to shape a different version of events than what actually happened. Day was arrested roughly a month after the alleged incident and booked on an aggravated assault charge, then released on a $30,000 surety bond. The Memphis Police Department confirmed the production was an approved film shoot with streets legally closed to the public, though officers were stationed on the outside perimeter rather than inside the closed set at the time of the alleged assault. As of the case's last known status, Day had not been formally indicted, with evidence still being presented to a grand jury, meaning the matter remains legally unresolved rather than decided. With J.J. Da Boss, the legal story is still waiting for an ending. But the next case had consequences that were immediate, devastating, and inseparable from the dangers of illegal street racing itself. So how did Izzy Valenzuela go from Street Outlaws driver to facing one of the most serious criminal cases in the franchise's history?
Who punched you?
Izzy Valenzuela, a murder charge that ended in a plea deal. Israel Izzy. Valenzuela, who ran his own performance shop, Izzy Performance in Gardena, California, and had appeared as a driver on Street Outlaws, was arrested in March 2015 in connection with a deadly illegal street race in Chatsworth, California, the previous February. Police say at least 60 spectators were watching when a modified 2014 Ford Mustang lost control just after 2 a.m. and slammed into the crowd, killing Eric Segenza, 26, and Wilson Thomas Wong, 50, and seriously injuring a third bystander. Israel was racing a Nissan GT-R against the Mustang at the time. He wasn't driving the car that actually struck the victims. He and a second man, Henry Gevorgian, who prosecutors said helped organize and start the race, were each charged with 2 counts of murder under California's street racing laws and held on $2 million bail apiece, facing up to 33 years in prison if convicted as charged. A third man, Karen Garibalyan, who was identified as the person actually driving the Mustang and who fled the scene afterward, was later charged with the same counts and held on $3 million bail. The case didn't go to a murder trial. Israel pleaded no contest in late 2015 to 2 lesser felony counts of vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence, facing a maximum of 180 days in jail and 5 years of probation. Gevorgyan took a similar plea to the same 2 counts, facing up to a year in jail and 3 years of probation, having reportedly acted as the race's starter rather than a driver. Karen pleaded no contest to the same manslaughter counts, plus a misdemeanor count of assault with a deadly weapon, admitting he'd fled the scene after the crash and faced up to 12 years in prison. The case, which ran for the better part of a year through the Los Angeles County court system, ultimately closed with all 3 men avoiding a murder conviction in favor of manslaughter pleas. The next Street Outlaws mystery was very different. It wasn't about a courtroom or a conviction. It was about a fan favorite who suddenly disappeared from the show, leaving viewers with years of unanswered questions. So what really happened to Josh Doughboy Day? Josh Doughboy Day, a disappearance the show never fully explained. Josh Day, known on Street Outlaws, Memphis as Doughboy, is J.J. Dawboss Day's oldest son, born December 31st, 1990, the first of J.J.'s 11 children. He married fellow racer Chelsea in September 2015, and the two have a son, Camden, and a daughter, Novalee. Doughboy first appeared in only the 2nd episode of the show and quickly built a loyal fan base by racing a 1973 Nova, at one point walking away unharmed from a horrific crash right after he'd actually won the race. Sometime in mid-2021, fans noticed he'd stopped appearing entirely, and his Instagram activity had actually gone quiet even earlier, with no posts since April 2019. The show never gave a clear on-camera explanation. Online, fans traded competing theories, some pointing to an unconfirmed legal issues story, with one fan on the discussion forum Yellow Bullet writing that they'd heard he'd spent time in what they jokingly called the Gray Bar Hilton, slang for jail, before hearing he was out and simply doing his own thing. Others connected his absence to a widely circulated video, sometimes referred to as the Cali fight, in which Doughboy appeared to be involved. None of that was ever officially confirmed by Doughboy, his family, or the show. The one explanation that did come from someone close to the situation was different entirely. J.J. Dawboss himself stated publicly that Doughboy had injured a disc in his back, and that the injury was the actual reason he'd stepped away from filming, though it remained unclear exactly when that injury happened relative to his last on-screen appearance. Between a father's stated explanation, an unconfirmed legal rumor, and a viral fight clip fans still point to today, Doughboy's disappearance remains one of the more unresolved storylines to ever come out of the Street Outlaws franchise, precisely because no single account was ever confirmed as the full and complete truth. Street Outlaws has always sold itself on real risk. These are the moments that remind you the risk was never just a storyline. Which one of these stories did you already know, and which one caught you off guard? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.